بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I ask Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala to send countless blessings and salutations on Sayyidina Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us the sincere intention. And among the intentions that we should make is that we intend, by the knowledge we're seeking, to implement it. As we mentioned yesterday, the saying, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ لِلْعَمَلِ, that knowledge, all of we're learning, is only to implement, to practice. And in all of our practice, we should keep in mind that we fall short. Each and every one of us should strive to their utmost to improve their practice, even if it is moment by moment, or day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. You should see some improvement in some aspect of your practice. So you should make a sincere intention that I want to improve myself. And one of the ways is that every day our teachers taught us, and this is something that you should be reminded about. Every day when you get up in the morning, make a firm intention. Oh Allah, I intend this day to obey all of your commandments, refrain from all of your prohibitions, and add extra optional deeds to that. If you can start your day off like that, it will be a motivator for you to actually improve. So if every morning you wake up, you say, listen, in your heart, you say, oh Allah, you speak to yourself, and you intend, oh Allah, I intend to perform all your obligations, leave off all the prohibitions, and to add optional deeds to that. You'll find your practice will improve. It will be a ba'ath for you, an urge and a push towards good deed, as Imam al-Haddad said. So we reached up to the 7th section in this book, which is the last section in the book of knowledge. In this summary, it is the bab السابع في العقل وشرفه, the section of the intellect and its nobility. Bismillah, let us recite Al-Fatiha to the soul of Imam al-Ghazali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Al-Fatiha. Naam, Bismillah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulullah. The author, may Allah have mercy on him, said 1.7. The intellect and its immanence. Elucidation of the immanence of the
And here we should say it's sharaf. So sharaf, you can really say it's nobility. And you should think of it like this. You know, even when we learn about the importance of things, they say sharaf al-ilm bi sharaf al-ma'lum, that the nobility of a particular science or a field of study is known by the nobility of the thing you're learning about, right? And you can know in this, in a more specific way about the intellect, its nobility can be known by what it leads to. When you use your intellect, you arrive at ma'rifatullah, knowledge about Allah. So it, from that aspect, you can see that the thing that's leading to that is honorable in and of itself, and that, or noble, and that is the intellect. And I want to say something about that before we go on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a ni'mah, an endowment, by giving us an intellect. Please use it, right? Our intellects will help us discover the truth if we use it. It's a faculty that if we use it, it will guide us to the truth, right? And it is an evidence in our religious proofs. That's why we have two types of basic evidences or proofs. When we learn about the deen, we have ad-dalil an-naqli, we have that textual transmitted proof from the Quran and the Sunnah, and we have ad-dalil al-aqli, we have the intellectual proof. And the intellectual proof helps us observe things that points us to the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is a noble aspect of our existence, the intellect. One time, I asked one of my teachers why sometimes it's difficult for people to accept the correct belief of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. He said to me in response, he said, because Madhab Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah is Madhabul Uqala. And those people, they don't use their aql. He said, because the school of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in Creed is the school of the people of intellects. And those people don't use their intellects. He explained the school of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah as the school of Al-Uqala, those with sound intellects. And we read in the Quran, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, do you not understand? Do you not use your intellect? It's an important aspect. Allahu Akbar. Naam, go ahead.
Elucidation of the immanence of the intellect is not something which requires a great deal of effort, especially when the immanence of knowledge has been made plain by means of the intellect, and the latter is the source and foundation of knowledge, which is, in relation to it, like the fruits are to the tree.
Allahu Akbar. Mm.
Scholars have, however, differed with regard to their definition of the intellect and its essence, and most have overlooked the fact that this term is given to different notions, and that it is this that lies at the root of their differences.
Mm.
The truth, which reveals the solution to these differences, is that the intellect is a common term which designates four notions. The first is an attribute which distinguishes the human being from the beast.
So four meanings that you can understand when we say al-aql, there are different meanings that is intended by that. The first,
The first is an attribute which distinguishes the human being from the beasts.
and here, very important. If you don't use your intellect, you will have the description of animals, baha'im, right? You will have the description of animals. The noble thing in the human that distinguishes them is not just the soul, because animals have souls. What is distinguishing them is al-aql, the intellect. That's what gives us that superiority and rank over animals. Mm.
This consists of that which gives us a disposition towards learning theoretical sciences and subtle intellectual disciplines. It is to this that Al-Hadith al-Muhasibi referred when he said in his definition of the intellect, it is an instinctive faculty, gariza, which gives one the perception to grasp the theoretical sciences. It is like a light which is thrown in the heart and with which one has the disposition to understand things.
Allahu Akbar. To understand things, to actually have comprehensive perception of matters, which in another way we can say in our terminology, critical thinking is illuminate the path for you. And the way you have critical thinking is to use your intellect. It will illuminate the path to you. Al-Harith al-Muhasibi, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he was an imam and a knower of Allah who lived during the same time of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And he was the sheikh of Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi. In fact, he used to author his books from the questions of Imam Junaid, radiallahu ta'ala, who was known as Sayyid al-Ta'ifa, the master of the group, meaning Ahl al-Tasawwuf, the people of Tasawwuf. And his works are amazing in the field of Tasawwuf. And one day, inshallah, we're working on doing a retreat just in his works. We did it before with Sheikh Samir, and I want to do it again, inshallah. His works are very, I like his tasawwuf is a practical tasawwuf. You know, you have a theoretical tasawwuf, you have this high spiritual tasawwuf, then you have that tasawwuf, which is amali, which you can actually implement in your life. The tasawwuf of Al-Imam Al-Harith Al-Muhasibi is a practical tasawwuf and very beneficial. You know, the rubber hitting the road in spirituality. Mm.
The second notion designates those different types of knowledge which come into existence in the person of the discerning child, like the possibility of the things that are possible and the impossibility of the things that are absurd. Mustahil.
So absurd, meaning here, those things whose existence the sound mind does not accept. So you have judgments of the mind. It's an important aspect when you learn Aqidah. You learn judgments of the mind, right? And there are three: al wajib al aqli, al jaiz al aqli, and al mustahil al aqli. Al wajib al aqli is that which the sound mind, al aqlu salim, so the sound intellect, in other words, does not accept its non existence. So it is an intellectual necessity. Because if one ponders and reflects with a sound mind and a pure heart, one would come to the conclusion that that must exist. And that is Allahu Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and His attributes, which is indicated in the Quran when Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala mentioned, Afillahi shak, there is no doubt about Allahu Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, right? The sound mind, as it observes and reflects everything around him, the person, the sound mind will lead them to the necessity of the existence of the Creator. And that's a process through which the intellect goes through from observing uh, existence, the physical existence around them, by observing it and deducing from it matters, one would come to realize that there must be a creator. The other day, I was watching on, I don't know if it was YouTube or Facebook or one of them, I don't know. But they had this big whale that was in the ocean, and it had its mouth open at the top of the water, collecting fish and birds, and it looked like something in the ocean. You wouldn't have known it was a whale the way it was for the time. And then it closed his mouth and captured all of it. It was a huge whale. And I was looking at that. I was like, how can someone deny there is a God? SubhanAllah. Observe that, right? The creation itself has so many signs that point to the Creator. So this is one aspect. The second aspect is al-jaizul aqli, the intellectual permissibility, and that is also from observation with the sound mind to realize that some things the sound mind would accept its existence at one point in time and its non-existence at another point in time. So that means that that thing is a creation because it didn't will its own existence, nor would it will its own non-existence. So there is another sign, even in the intellectual permissibilities, that point to the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last one, which Imam al-Ghazali indicated, is al-mustahil al-aqli, that those things that is an intellectual impossibility. The mind, the sound mind, does not accept its existence, like a partner for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Subhanallah. Mm. But that's a class that you would learn in ilm tawheed, in the science of tawheed.
Or such as the knowledge that two are greater than one, and the same person cannot be in two different places at the same time. The third designates the knowledge acquired from experiencing different situations. For the one who has gained wisdom from experience and was refined by the trials of his life is usually described as possessing an intellect. And the person who has not had any experience in life is described as stupid.
Subhanallah.
The fourth
No, go ahead.
the fourth designates the development.
Experience, I'm sorry. Experience is a very beneficial teacher if you reflect on experiences. Learn from your experiences. Ponder and reflect on your experiences. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you certain situations in life to teach you a lesson. Some of the scholars, they explained it. They said, I learned my Lord by, how do I say this? Wow. I learned my Lord by, I'm trying to think of words to say in English. Complete blank. I learned my Lord by the inability to achieve my objectives and plans. It's a loose what I'm trying to say. The meaning is sometimes you set your aspirations and your desires, right? And it don't go the way you want. That is a sign that shows you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have all these, resolves. I'm going to do this. I want to do that. And all those resolves, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blocks them, though you desire them, though you are committed and you're going after it, you planned it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow it to occur. Despite all of your resolve to get it done, it doesn't occur. When that occurs, that's a sign to you that points you to Allah if you use your intellect. And experience that constantly happen in life should teach you about wajibul wujud, al-wajibul wujud, that one whose existence is a necessity, Allahu tabarak wa ta'ala, who is fa'alun, al-fa'alun lima yurid, the one who does whatever he wills. You should reflect on your life. The experiences in your life will teach you about the Creator, his attributes, his doings in the creation. All of that you can learn from your experiences. And you should reflect on your experiences. They are a beautiful teacher. For the one who uses their intellect, there's a connection because your experiences will only benefit you if you reflect upon them. And you reflect by way of your aql. Right? When you see people keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's because they didn't reflect on their experiences. That doesn't work. Right? And Imam Ghazali is pointing to that. Your experiences, upon reflection, should guide you to better decision makings, a better decision making process. But it only works when you use your intellect with those experiences. When you combine them, that's why it's mentioned as a meaning that is contained uh, in meanings related to the intellect. Sometimes I want to go off the rail with some of these discussions. I don't. But we've been a victim of not using our intellect so much. This is like could be a whole book. A whole book, an entire book, just on the intellect and experience and its relationship to our present condition. It's a deep lesson in it. Naam, go ahead.
The fourth designates the development of that instinctive faculty to a point whereby one knows the consequences of things and suppresses the desire which invites one to an immediate delight. Once this force is developed, the person who possesses it is called intelligent, and that his indulging and withholding depend on pondering upon the consequences and not on the immediate desire. This characteristic is also specific to the human being and distinguishes him from other animals.
Here, for us, there is something we can grab quickly from this. Use your intellect with your experience to help you strive to having a good ending. Combined with faith in the unseen, experience and intellect will help you see the consequence of disobedience and the benefit of obedience in the end. When you put all that together, you'll see the final result of things is for al-muttaqin, for the pious, when you put it all together. Revelation, the sound intellect, experience, and reflecting on the final outcome of all that will lead you to piety. So, revelation, employing the sound intellect built upon your experience will help you have a good ending. You put all that together, husn al-khatima, a good ending. And start using your intellect, and you'll realize I've seen this movie before. You know? Yeah, you've seen this movie before. You're just not reflecting and thinking about your experiences and looking at Revelation and using your mind that you've seen this movie before and you know how it ends. Right? But if you don't think about it, you don't critically think about it, you don't observe and reflect and ponder, you're gonna miss the the same movie happening over and over again. Subhanallah. Yeah, let's start using our intellects. It's a blessing. Don't waste it. Critical thinking, that critical thinking process, evaluating circumstances and situations, events, observing the outcome of those events will be a great benefit to pushing you towards obedience and leaving off disobedience. You know, uh, if we learn to do that, we won't keep getting burnt so much. Seriously, as a people, observe the different events that have happened in our history and how they occurred and what was the end result. We won't get burnt so much. This lesson is so important. It needs a lot of reflection, and maybe I'll come back and expand on it, both in a more academic and technical way, but really more in a practical way. But both is needed. 'Cause this is a very important section. And it also has a connection to logic, which the intellect plays an important role in the science of logic. Yeah, subhanAllah. Okay, so that's just something on my agenda. My mind is, but this is not the place for it right now. Inshallah, we'll come back to it. Naam, go ahead. Bismillah.
Thus, the first two designations are obtained by natural disposition, tab, while the last two are by acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Scholars have also differed about the disparity of the intellect. What is clearly true to say on this is that such disparity concerns the above different divisions, except for the second, which is necessary knowledge of the possibility of possible accidents and the absurdity of what is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
As for the fourth part,
Thirdly, here you mean the impossibility of what is impossible. But it takes process. So, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's impossible to have another creator, right? Or a partner for Allah. So Allah gives us in the Quran, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَفَسَدَتَا, right? If there were in the heavens and in earth more than one God, they would be ruined. That's an intellectual process, right? That one would go through to come to that observation, right? As an example, if there were two gods and they wanted things that which is opposite, that cannot exist in the same time and place, like light and darkness. And then you realize that God or the creator must be having will and power, right? And since both could not exist at the same time, one whose will and power is achieved would be God, and the other one would not be God. And that process of every different circumstance that could happen with uh, uh, that situation would give you nullifying the fact of a weak God and affirming a God that is attributed with power, will, and knowledge. It's a process of using the intellect to arrive at a Quranic truth. And the same way with permissible things. Now,
As for the fourth part, the dominance of the force to overcome desires, the difference in people in this respect is quite obvious. Indeed, the particular states of the same person often differ in this regard. This results as much from the disparity of the desire as it does from the disparity of the knowledge which informs about the potential danger of that desire.
and here, my advice to people who want to get married, this fourth aspect, be careful of it. And don't marry based on shahwa. Use your aql before you get involved. Desire oftentimes pushes people to bad decision making. And the intellect is a decisive evidence or means to protect you from that. I know what you like, but what do you really see? This is very important, right? It's extremely important. We have these discussions. I know what I like, but what do I really observe? Right? And since when you're talking about marriage or financial decision, things that's going to have a strong impact, use your intellect to navigate those circumstances, not your desires. Shaitan leads us to destruction by pushing the desires of ourselves to the forefront and the strength of the intellect to the back. Our teachers would tell us when the desire is roused in a person, 3/4 of the intellect leave. Aroused in a person. Once your desires start to kick in, 3/4 of the intellect go away. You're no longer thinking. And that's why it's so important to overcome your desires, right? Struggle with that. And if you observe one who is governed by their passions and desires, you will see a bad outcome all the time. Just pay attention. Whether it's financial, in forms of relationships, right? Even sometime in career pursuits. If you go based on your desire without employing your intellect, you're going to find yourself miserable. The end will always be something you're displeased with. So take from this the importance of really using your intellect as a guiding force in your decision making process. Subhanallah. Please pay attention to the movie. You've seen it before. You've seen the movie over and over again. Pay attention. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. This
As,
this this chapter definitely needs to be reviewed with a lot of details. Subhanallah.
as for the third designation, which is experiential knowledge, people's disparity in it is undeniable. This is due either to their instinctive faculties or to their involvements. If you were to ask, why then have some people condemned the intellect and the intelligible? You should know that this results from the fact that they have extrapolated the terms intellect and intelligible to argumentation and debate through antithesis and inherent inconsistencies, which belong properly to the domain of theology.
Here, this is a trick by the people of misguidance. They always say, if you examine their vow creed, you're debating and arguing. Right? And Allah prohibits us to debate and argue. No, 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 no. The intellect leads you to obvious absurdities in creed. This thing is absurd, intellectually impossible. And the means to do that is to use the intellect. So they would blame the people of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah saying, oh, these people put intellect over revelation. No, it's not. Intellect is a proof to the truthfulness of revelation. And both are needed. As one of my teachers said, you will keep relying upon naql and denying al-aql and its place until you become a knucklehead. So you will keep relying upon a naql, transmitted text, while denying the importance of al-aql, the intellectual proofs and evidences, until ultimately you become a knucklehead. Allahu Akbar. And you will begin to accept the intellectually impossible. Allahu Akbar. Okay, go ahead.
Thus, they could not admit to having committed a mistake in the altered meanings, because they could not drop the terms after they had been diffused among the people and were firmly established in their minds. Consequently, they condemned the intellect and the intelligible, which are, according to them, theological terms. As for the light of inner sight by which Allah the Exalted is known and through which the truthfulness of his apostles is ascertained, how is it conceivable to condemn it? Most of these types of confusion are caused by the ignorance of people who seek meanings from words and thus are in disagreement because
Say
people's
meaning more
terminologies.
than meanings, realities from words. Al-haqa'iq, realities from words. More than meanings, more deep. From these words, they try to extract divine realities. Mm.
Most of these types of confusion are caused by the ignorance of people who seek realities from words and thus are in disagreement because people's terminologies differ greatly. This much is enough to elucidate the definition and essence of the intellect, and Allah knows best.
And here's an important point, and this goes to Aqidah, and we need to have another talk about this. Maybe tomorrow we should talk about it, because I discovered from talking to some of us that we understand words, and we gather some meanings, but we have a conflict with words and meanings when it comes to understanding realities, especially when we're talking about Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and his attributes. So you have words, you have meanings, and you have a reality, right? And you have to learn to reconcile all of them for a sound creed. Did y'all just follow that? Did y'all follow that? Yay, nay, maybe so. You have words, meanings, and reality. And you need to reconcile all three to arrive at correct belief. Let me give you an example. Okay. Word. And we're talking about in creed. Yadullah. Right? Oops, excuse me. And the word I want to highlight is yed. Right? Right? So you read this word in the Quran, Yadullahi fawqa aydihim, yed. Right? That word, you understand the word yed. Yed has multiple meanings that can be ascribed to it. To that word, multiple meanings can be ascribed. Among those meanings are meanings which befit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and meanings which do not befit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The intellect is employed with revelation to ascribe befitting meanings to those words, right? To protect one from missing a divine reality. Which is unknown to the human being. So while we give befitting meanings, we understand that those meanings in no way are a divine or a comprehensive understanding of a reality of Allahu Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Even if the meanings befit attributes of Allah, those meanings do not reflect that reality. But if you give the wrong meanings, it will contradict that reality, meaning the reality of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. You have to reconcile all of that. To arrive at truth or the correct creed. So when you understand Laysa kamithlihi shay, no thing resembles Allah, that's the reality. But you still have these words and meanings that you're going to be confronted with. And the sound mind is needed to process that. Maybe I'll write this out further with examples. Do you got the point here a little bit? MashaAllah. We'll come back to it. But it's very important for you to understand correct belief and stop ascribing attributes of creations to the creator. And the problem is words and meanings without understanding an ultimate reality and how to join between all of that. Mm. Okay, let me take the question. If there's questions, please feel free quickly. 'Where am I at? I'm sorry. What happened? One second. Someone had a question and I missed it. Malika, you had a question and I misplaced it. Can you put it back? You asked the question and I lost it. If you can repost it. Off topic. I don't tell people. I don't tell people who to vote for. Really, this is my advice to you in voting. I don't tell people who to vote for. I never tell people who to vote for. Why? Because everyone has their outlook, and they need to figure what is best according to their outlook, right? So I never tell people who to vote for. Because there are many scales and sides to things, especially politics. What I will tell you is this: be wise. Y'all ready? Follow this. Be wise. Be wise. And what is the wise person? Who is the wise person? Be wise. Who is the wise person? The wise person is not the one who can distinguish only between good and bad, good and evil. Rather, the wise person is the one who can distinguish the best of the good and the least harmful of the evil. Be wise. The wise person is the one who can distinguish the best of the good and the least harmful of the evil. You follow? That's my advice in voting. Look at it and try to see if there is good, find the best of that good. And if there is evil, find the least harmful of that evil. For me, personally, that's what I always try to do. And sometimes, depending how deep you look at a thing and what outcome you want to see, is going to determine how you see good and evil and how you see the best of the good and the least harmful of the evil. It depends how you look at things. You follow my point? It's extremely important because there's nuance. And what I would tell you, and this lesson kicks in, use your intellect. As for the so-called Salafis' opinions, I don't care about their opinions. They don't, that is, we're not slaves anymore. Who cares what they think? Honestly. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. The Salafis are slaves to Saudi Arabia. Who cares what they think? Honestly. They don't care about you. Why you care about them? I'm being frank. They are slaves to Saudi Arabia. And look at the outcome of Saudi Arabia. It's a mess. Who cares about what they think? Honestly. Did y'all get that part yet? Did y'all see this movie that these people don't care about you? You didn't see that yet? Really, who cares what they think? What is more important is what do we need and what do we have to do for our own selves as a people? You can put the name Salafi on Saudi Arabia and their scholarship and their thoughts. Who cares? They don't care about us. The movie, you didn't see what movie? Making of a Black Slave. You didn't see that movie a million times? That's the movie that you're the star actor in it. The Making of a Black Slave. And if we still listening to foreign entities tell us how we should deal with our reality, we have a bigger problem than voting. Seriously. If we're still listening to foreign entities to tell us how to deal with our reality, we have a bigger problem than we think. It ain't voting. If you haven't figured out with your own intellect how to navigate your reality, and you need someone who doesn't even deal with your reality or care about your reality, and it's evident in that, and you still worrying about what they think about your reality, you have a serious problem, and it ain't voting. Yeah, that's a big problem. That's a huge problem. So you can't, the whole class we talked about, such a person doesn't use their intellect ever. In fact, their intellect is subjugated by an inferiority complex in relation to someone else. That's a deep thought. And we as a people need to be a people. You're dealing with a reality of a people. You better start thinking like a people, using your intellect like a people, and having the courage to be a people. Or you're going to be a slave and actually become extinct in terms of reality while you suffer from reality. That's why we say Black Imams Roundtable. We're intentional in that. So I think we need to fix that issue. And then once you fix that issue, you probably could benefit from others. You could benefit from others without being subjugated, right? But you have to fix that issue. You have to see yourself differently. But that takes some thinking. You follow? It takes some thinking. And since you're talking about that presidential election, you need to pay attention to the movie, because this is going to be a challenging time for us, and we need to think our way through it. We need to critically think our way through it. We have a lot of work to do. Subhanallah, we have a lot of work to do. I'm doing a study. I got to close, but y'all got me. I hate us being in this situation. Seriously. We have so much potential, and all we have to do is get rid of this inferiority complex, this subjugation of our intellectual capacity, and we could change our whole situation. But that's a big, tall order to get rid of all that stuff, especially when people telling you, no, you can't. But I'm doing a study religiously. It's the first time I ever embarked on it, because I would have never embarked on the study I'm doing until me, myself, was free enough, courageous enough to not have an inferiority complex and have my intellect subjugated by someone who doesn't care about me. I had to actually do that myself to even begin the process of doing the research. It's deep, right? To do the research that I need to do religiously, To help us, I had to go through that whole process myself, right? And it is a struggle. I'm telling you, it's a struggle to free your mind. Man, that's a struggle. Especially when people have used religion to keep you in your place. When religion actually is designed to free you. That's deep. The deen is supposed to free you, not make you a slave. Allahu Akbar. Yeah. Deep discussion, deep discussion. Maybe one day we'll have these deep discussions. Maybe we'll have these deep discussions. We need men, though. And when I say men, that's a certain, I don't mean gender. It's a mentality. You're comfortable with using the faculties that Allah gave you to discover truth independently. It's like the story of the person who was bullied, who finally first gets the courage or gets tired of bullied and fights back and realizes the bully can't even fight. Like the one who was bullied and finally gets tired of being bullied, gets the courage to fight back and discover when they fight back that the bully can't even fight. You're going to have that moment. And when you get that moment, there's your freedom religiously. When you realize the one who's subjugating you ain't even that smart. You're not even that smart. You just taught me to disconnect the wires of my intellect. But you're not even that smart. And once I do that, it's easy to discover that you're not that smart. SubhanAllah. I was talking to somebody. They will remain anonymous. We were talking about this. And subconsciously, sometimes people don't know what they be saying. Subconscious, they don't realize it. You got to have some guts, seriously. When you're dealing with someone who wants to enslave you, make you inferior, subjugate you, you got to be courageous in the face of that. I was talking to a person. So we were talking about situations of Black enslavement through religion. So you have these people who they see what's happening to Black people and they feel it's wrong, but because it's their people, They can't adequately criticize their own because of a self feeling. If I criticize them, I'm actually criticizing myself. So I got to get them a little pass. You know that feeling? Can you identify? So I know that they wrong. I know this is wrong, and I know it's wrong, but I'm from that. They're my people. So I gotta, like, give it some justification while at the same time letting you know I sympathize with you. But really, we still supposed to be on top. So someone with this position, not realizing that's their position, but it's obvious. We were talking about one slave master who Negroes voluntarily become their slaves. And I said to this person, he was talking about that person, that I said, man, dude's ignorant. And the person said to me, no, he's not ignorant. He's racist. I said, no, he's ignorant and racist, and more ignorant than racist. And I said it with my chest. And then he said, okay. But it was a point I was making. You ain't gonna convince me he got no knowledge, and I know he don't, just because he's your people. Even though you don't realize that's what you're saying. Because you know yourself, you're saying he's ignorant. But it's okay for you to say it, but not us. And I be watching that stuff. Game, recognize game. Stop it. We have work to do, seriously. And we have a lot of work to do. And we got to do the work. We got to do the work on ourselves in order to do the work that we have to do. We have to do the work on ourselves first in order to do the work that we need to do. We're never going to do the work that we need to do until we do the work on ourselves first. We got to get that inferiority complex out of our hearts, out of our minds, out of our bodies. We have to start believing in ourselves. We can do it, really. And then actually start taking the steps to do it. We need a revival among ourselves. Bad. Okay, I went way over and I have another class. So inshallah, I hope our intellects kick in and we start using them and examining things and also learning, because that's a process of it. Right. Inshallah. And that's an ongoing process. May Allah reward you all. Barakallahu bikum wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. And I remind you of Tuesday, we continue in our process of the rubber hitting the road, and we move from Aqidah to Al-Fiqh, inshallah. So I'll see y'all tomorrow, inshallah. Barakallahu bikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.